Hey, good afternoon. It is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, Brian.
Happy Valentine's Day, Richard.
Happy
I was just
Valentine's
laughing
Day,
at
honey.
the fact that somehow we had like 30 seconds of no music, and then we jammed out for like 12 seconds at the end. So
Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes.
technical mishaps, yeah.
That's right.
Did you get Jess for something for Valentine's?
Yeah, I got her a Lego, or not Lego, Mega Constructs Halo Infinite kit, so that's keeping her a little busy. That's the kind of people we are.
Isn't that nice?
Do you know what my honey got?
What'd you get, honey?
Absolutely love.
Aw.
Same thing I get her every year.
Send hearts in the chat, folks.
There you go. She's well loved.
You may be seeing me piddling around for those of you who don't know what's going on right now. So there's been a lot of talk online about these silicon spacers on 3D printers, and I'm going the ridiculously high route. I've got Smooth Sill 945 in there, and I'm trying to work on another set of molds here to remove them right now. And as you can tell, layer adhesion was not stellar, even though it looked great. Let's see if we can focus on that. There we go. But, I mean, the rest of it looked nice. So now I'm just working on popping these little buggers out, and I'll have to give you guys a little summary later on how they worked out.
There you go. So good afternoon to everybody. It's Sunday, and this is our regular Ask for Help. We've got some questions that came in this week, so we're going to cover those. We're also going to cover your questions today. We've got Geraldine, my lovely wife, over on the chat, monitoring things and sending over wonderful messages when they come in. So let's kick things off with, well, I don't know. What are we going to kick things off with? So should we do a letter? Or do you have one that you want us to kick off with, Jerry?
No, go ahead with your letter one.
Okay. So let's start with the first one. This is hello, and this is coming from Kyle. He says, I wanted to thank you for all of the quality content that you put out. I had been wanting to get into 3D printing for years, but felt a little intimidated getting into it, considering I'm barely literate when it comes to technology. However, your content comes across as very welcoming and gives me the confidence to move forward and give it a try. I have since been very happy with the prints I've been getting. I purchased a BL Touch thinking it would make things easier for a beginner like myself. However, I was woefully mistaken and put it aside after countless hours of flashing firmware and trying to get it to work. If I knew then what I know now, I would never have bought one because spending a couple of extra minutes leveling the bed before a print forced me to learn how to troubleshoot and become more in tune with my printer instead of just relying on a sensor. That's actually a great thing to do. And this is why I always tell people, don't add anything to your printer when you first get it. Just learn it. With that, go ahead, Brian.
No, absolutely. You're right. I mean, the BL Touch is a bed leveling aid, but it doesn't replace standard bed leveling. You can't just throw it on your machine and say, hey, it's going to bed level on every instance. There actually is some code changes that allow you to get into that. But then a whole different set of mechanical issues pops up, notably with the Z-rods trying to keep up with bed level changes. If you have an extreme change that's 20 millimeters, give or take, which you can run it on, it just gets really grumpy, and your prints are just never going to come out good quality, even with the compensation there. So yeah, by all means, always learn to level your bed properly first. Even if you have a BL Touch, do your tramming tests and everything before you do your ABL. Trust me, it's going to make a world of difference. I didn't realize I'm really low here, so I'm going to go ahead. There we go. How about that?
That looks better. All right. So let's finish into his letter. He says, with that being said, I'm committed to learning how to make it work because, like before, what seemed intimidating to me ended up leading to a great path of learning something new. I have an Ender 3 with a new motherboard, version 4.2.7 running Marlin 2.0 with the bug fixes. I like the board because it comes with a port to plug in the BL Touch instead of needing an adapter, and you're also able to boot it without the need of an extra boot device like the old 8-bit boards. The sensor turns on and the registers, however, in the software for the printer, my PLC, does not indicate any BL Touch options or the ability to manually adjust the Z-stop for zeroing the sensor. This is my first step into anything code related, and I'm pretty confident that I've followed your tutorial for setting up the BL Touch. Let's just cut to these pictures you can see up on screen now. He says, I used Visual Code to make the edits and created my bin file. I was sure to add, replace, and necessary files to configure my printer. Right now, I'm at the complete loss, and I'm hoping that you might have some tips on where things went wrong. I included pictures, which are up on the screen right now, with all my main options, along with what is shown under motion and picture of my board showing the new port. At the risk of having a look at what you've got here, I think you've got everything plugged in correctly. However, this is now a firmware issue. This is not a hardware issue. You've got all the pins plugged in where they're supposed to be. The idea now, I think what you're missing in the firmware is you're not using the BL Touch firmware. And for the BL Touch to work properly and to have those menus, they have to be configured in the firmware. Certain things have to be turned on, and sometimes you can make a bin code when you don't have auto bed leveling turned on, but you have the BL Touch turned on. So what I want you to do is go back and have a look and see if you've got all the proper bed leveling devices turned on. Brian?
Brian.
Oh, Brian, we can't hear Brian for some reason.
Bueller.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. There we go. Yeah, so the one way to check in your firmware with the latest Marlin versions, if you have a BL Touch, is if you hop into the configuration menu. Unfortunately, I don't have it here to share with you guys, but there is a menu to do BL Touch commands such as stow, reset, deploy, which are all great things to hook up, especially when you get flashing lights on your BL Touch. So just be sure to check your config menu, and that'll tell you if you have it enabled. Now, as Richard said, you don't need bed leveling to use a BL Touch. You know, it just is basically replacing your Z Endstop by default. So you need to go and turn on either bilinear bed leveling or UBL and learn about their different techniques and what they mean. And even then, there are still a few little tricks involved to make sure that it maintains that bed leveling data after you do a homing. I don't recall if we covered that in our video, but what you're going to want to do is make sure to check for the setting G28 restores bed leveling data. I think that's what it's under there. It should be under config.h, should be by your bed leveling.
Yes.
And basically what it says is it reloads your bed leveling data after doing your homing command. If you don't do that, it'll go to the home, it'll start printing, and then it may look all wonky, and that's because there's actually no bed leveling data being applied. If you don't know if your bed leveling data is being applied or not, a good way is when you're doing your first layer on the printer, see the little couplers on the bed of your Z rods that rotate and move it up and down? Put your finger against that and just see if you feel micro movements as it's moving around the bed. If you are, then it's compensating for your bed leveling. If it's not whatsoever, then it's just printing as if it's a flat surface.
So Ian was telling me that my mic was a little loud. Is it better now? Let me know. And if it isn't, then I'll fix it.
I only have Richard coming in as my audio reference right now. I don't have any music playing or anything. So, yeah, let us know if we ever have any audio issues like that.
We'll do our best to correct them for you.
Oh, sorry, that was a rough couple of minutes. While you were reading that whole thing, I was popping out these little silicone spacers, and, you know, they came out pretty nice. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so Macaw Henry is asking, have you seen the Elegu Neptune? I have an Ender 3, but it has a few problems. Well, I'd like to know what the problems are with the Ender 3 first and foremost, but the Elegu Neptune I have not seen personally yet. Elegu hasn't sent one out to us. We haven't reached out to get one.
Actually. Yeah.
What's that?
Tom Sandlander there was the only person I think who's received one. I think I saw do a review on it this week, but I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. I mean, you know, Elegu, for those of you who don't know, Elegu is actually, they do a lot of different products. Everyone's like, oh, they're making FDM printers now. Well, they've been making Arduino kits and electronic kits and, you know, one of those companies that don't just specialize in 3D printing. So I wasn't surprised. What would I expect without actually looking at the machine? I would not have expected them to engineer something of their own. I would expect them to take someone else's design and improve on it. And we've seen that go both directions. So I don't want to make a call on the unit yet. But I would still say, if their choice in the same price range between the Elegu and the Ender 3, the Ender 3 is proven to be a good machine. So it sounds like there might be a few more issues there. Send us an email with the issues you're having with your Ender 3, and we will try our best to get you right back on track. It's pretty much the most reliable machine I've ever worked with.
I just have to check some things on my audio here.
Okay, while you're checking that, I'm just going to comment on something Dominic Versetto was just saying. It says, it sounds like ARC support is only useful for Core XY. Yes, no? Absolutely not. It is awesome for every printer. And that's, we're not sure how we're going to do a video on this yet. We're still working on that. But this was printed on a CR-10 with ARC support. And it is disgustingly smooth. Now, the reason for that is because ARC support is basically condensing 24 some odd commands into one, and so it's less load on your printer's memory. So whereas it had to micro stutter in between movements when it got hammered, the ARC turns this 24, 30 movements into one movement. Simple answer so far is it does work great. And you know what, I'll share this with you guys anyways. Last week, I think I showed this on the live stream on Wednesday here. This is a little Master Chief helmet printed in silk gold on the exact same machine as this. And it looks hideous. And I was even shocked it finished. But the difference is, this was printed with the Arc Welder mod on a machine that did not have G3 Arc. And what happens in Marlin is when Marlin doesn't understand a command, it skips it. And so what you'll see, especially on this top portion, if it comes through there, it's a little bright, but anywhere where there was supposed to be an arc, it just skipped it and jumped to the next movement and then blobbed it. And it somehow managed to finish it just on a whim. Most times you'll end up with holes in your model and all sorts of other stuff. So we're going to be going through how to check if your printer has that, and then how to enable it, and what exactly it's doing in a future video.
All right, let's get on to the next question here. It's from Greg, and he says, oh, wait a sec. There we go. Stop moving up. He says, good morning, Richard and Brian. He says, I subscribed about a month ago, and I'm very impressed with your knowledge and experience. Thank you very much. I just watched your live video with the past weekend, and will be trying to watch live from now on. I'm in the Central Time Zone, so I'm not sure what time your show comes on in my time. Anyway, I'm fairly new to 3D printing and currently have a 3D Ender Pro, and I'm very happy with it. Although the bed has warped and I'm getting a glass bed replacement for it. I'm not very tech savvy since I'm pretty much new to this. I want to purchase another printer with a larger build capacity and want something that will work great out of the box other than bed leveling, and should be fairly trouble-free. My budget is $500 tops. I was hoping you could make a good suggestion based on all your experience, or really only print at this point, or PLA at this point, I'm sorry, but might do other things as my knowledge grows. Thanks in advance. That's from Greg G. Now, because I do most of the testing on all the new printers in here, I'll try and tackle this one for you. There are some great options out there. If you can go over $100, Creality is always a good start. I would recommend them. I would also recommend Lotmaxx if you're interested in something that's a little lower in price. And then I would also encourage you to look at the Mingda line of products. Now, Mingda is a new company in the retail space, but they have been around in the industrial space for some time. They started last year or the year before doing consumer grade 3D printers, and we here in the studio, we've got their D2, which is the equivalent to an Ender 3, and we also have the Rock 3, which is their sort of step up from their D3, which was their 300 by 300 by 400 build volume. So it's got a fairly good build volume. The weakness in both of these printers, in my opinion, is the fact that they've got a magnetic bed. And I really hate the magnets. And I have been working with them behind the scenes with suggestions of how they could improve their products. And I would really like to see them in the future go to a metal flex plate as opposed to using this magnet one, this fridge magnet one. Because once you start getting up there into 80 degrees or hotter, if you're printing PEG or you want to print ABS open air,
or something big like this,
or something big like that, you're going to run into problems with the magnetic attraction of both those magnets starting to lose that because of the heat. Heat affects that very, very much. So that's what I would do. Dewitt says he's impressed. He's got a Rock 3. He's been very impressed so far.
Ming so far has been fairly reliable, and the great thing is they've got great communication. So if you are needing some help, they've been fairly good in our books so far. Actually, they rate one of the highest for response there. We're just, what Ming does very new to the market in Canada, so we haven't built up a surplus of machines of them, honestly. So I'm relying on Richard's word for that one there. I'm still rocking all my Creality stuff that I've tinkered around with and tweaked and all that stuff. I mean, basically, it's just simply put, don't go cheap when it comes to a 3D printer. It's just like a laptop. You buy a $500 laptop, you're going to get a year out of it. You buy a $1,000 laptop, you're going to get 4 years out of it. So, take that into account on your life cycle and where your budget is. I personally had a lot of high hopes for the Ender 5 Plus, but I haven't personally played with one, and unfortunately the feedback I've seen has mostly been people who had challenges with it. I don't know if that was user error or not. So again, it's a nice build size for what it is, and it's probably within your budget range. Nice thing is it goes to a cube design rather than the what do they call them now? Bed flingers or bed swingers?
Bed swingers, I think, is what they call them.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, where it moves the bed back and forth. The Ender 5 goes to a model where the bed moves up and down, which is great if you're looking for high speed prints and you want less vibration. But again, I haven't played with that model, so I don't want to tell you just go and buy it just in case there are some challenges. Just do your research, read the community groups. No offense, but try to avoid the Facebook feedback, because generally people write there before they actually look at the issue. And so sometimes you can get some really bad accusations on there. But go to actual reputable 3D sites and make your determination on whether or not it's a sponsored review or not, shall we say.
I will tell you, in my own opinion, that 90% of the time if somebody has a problem with a 3D printer, it's because it's user error. It's not usually on the side of the hardware. It's the understanding of the hardware. And we've come across this the odd time too. We make mistakes like everybody else. But then we come across companies that just don't have a good product. They've got a great idea. They've put it out in the marketplace. They want the consumer to test it for them and tell them what's wrong with it. And I fully disagree with that line of marketing, because at the end of the day, it's going to do one of two things. First, it's either going to help them fix everything, or two, it's going to discourage the marketplace, and people are just going to say, no, it's junk. It's, they're going to read everything. I couldn't get it to do this. I couldn't get it to do that. So that's why we're very careful when we go ahead and try to do a review on something, that we kind of take things apart and we look at things. We have a printer actually two printers upstairs and one sitting down here that we've had various issues with, and they just, in my mind, are not ready for the marketplace yet.
Yep, exactly. And we try to do them a common courtesy, right? We're not going to go and say, we're not going to give you a clickbaity, this is the crummiest printer on the market. Honestly, if you ever work out in the industry, it's not worth to burn bridges like that. We want to try to give a company a chance. And the reason we do that is because sometimes these small companies fail, and the best knowledge goes over to company B. And company B we had a great relationship with, but this person says, oh, I remember dealing with them during that one project. So remember, everybody's human at the end of the day. No one's trying to scam you or anything, but some companies are skipping QA at checks or don't have the knowledge on certain aspects of 3D printers, and they ship something that on spec should work, but in reality does not.
Yeah, that's true. We've got one here from J-Rob. He says, is there any CR-10S SKR Mini 3 wiring diagrams? I have 2 yellow wires, not red, but also seem to be missing where fans go. On the SKR Mini, there are... Brian, I wonder if you can look that up.
Yeah, I can pull up the...
there isn't for the CR-10S specifically. There are for the Ender. However, we are building a guide right now to show you how to take SKR boards and put them into a CR-10S.
Yes, let me just pull up. Yeah, so Big Tree Tech, as I said, they have a GitHub page which has all the information. I'll see if I can pull this up quickly for you guys here. Scene. I keep rearranging my scenes on my screens here, guys, so apologies. There might be weird boundaries and things. Welcome to the wonderful world of technical releases. Let's try that. Okay, so here we are on the on their GitHub page for the Mini E3, and you can see they've got firmware, hardware, etc. Now, there's a couple. What we want to do is jump into hardware. Decide your board version. Let's just look at the 2.0 for now. We go into hardware again, and then you can see they've got all these different documents. They've got the instruction manual. They've got a pin, size, SCH, which stands for schematic, BOT for, I believe this one, I always forget what this one is there. I think it's the actual, oh yeah, this is the silk screening bot for when you manufacture boards. Again, like, they give you all the information here for you to actually make your own SKR mini board, which is kind of cool. So what we're going to look at is we're first going to look at the pin one. Now this one here will provide us with the pin layouts for that board. Now to read this, what you have to do is take a look at all your different headers in different positions on the board, and then follow it straight down, and it'll usually correspond to a direct location. If it doesn't, the little label above that should usually have a broken out point down below. So in the case of fans, if we take a look at fan 1 and fan 0 here, which are located just right center on the bottom here, fan 1 has a power pin and then has PC7 as our return pin. Then fan 0 has 1224 volt and PC6. So what this tells me on this board is that both of these fans can actually be controlled through software. A message like PC, PB, PA, PD implies I/O pins on an actual electronic schematic. Now, if you saw something that says GND, that just means ground. So with that, you can figure out where all your wires go. Simply put, any power wires are usually a color, so yellow or red, and then any return wires will either be a ground or be an I/O pin for controlling its operation, and those will be black. So just take a look at your board. You can see on this one even it shows you which pin should be positive, which pin should be negative. I know when I've done Creality CR-10S conversions, I believe I had to build, I might have had to build a connector. I could be a little rusty on that, but what I've used before is if you have an always-on fan, let's say your part cooling fan coming down from your hot end, I wire it into this connector down here, this power one, because it's basically just a parallel connection of your power wires coming into the board. So that's an always-on 12 or 24 volt, depending on what your power supply sends signal. So I would wire the hot end fan into there. I would wire the case fan into that one. You can twist them together and put them in there. I don't recommend any more than 2 per port because of the electrical design world. That's a limitation normally. But if you do have something else, you can potentially twist 3 together. The main thing is to make sure there's no opportunity for those 2 wires to short together, because that will pop your fuse. And thankfully they have fuses. If they didn't, you'd actually blow your board. There's your hopeful little technical. I'm going to go ahead and post this in the chat, and you guys can go ahead and check the document out yourself, and then browse around. You know, they're really good at providing schematics and all that information as soon as the board's on the market. If not, you can email them, and they usually have it up within a few days.
Yes, definitely. So Gary T, welcome to the Infill on our members. Okay. So we'll have to add Gary T to our members list for next week. We have all of our new members that you saw scrolling along the bottom. Isaac Sheared. There we go. Is there a way in Cura to make a model have a rougher texture than fuzzy? It would be for grip on the broom ball head. Oh, so you wanna do a grip on a broom ball head. I think you're gonna have to model that in, because I don't believe there's any way in the slicers to add any sort of texture to it. Brian?
No, yeah, there's no way of doing it in there. The fuzzy texture was a modifier that basically vibrates the X and Y at random positions while it's printing, so it happens during the slicing stage. Now, if you want to do that, I'm going to have to play around a little bit here, but here I am inside Mesh Mixer. And what we have here is we have the bunny model that it comes with, and just off screen here, they have different primitives that you can slap in, add in, but there's a way you can edit it. There's a couple different modes you can play around with this. Unfortunately, I can't remember the exact mode. Maybe someone can let me know in the chat here, but you can mix parts together. You can do different solids, hollowing, patterns. You can do weird things in here. I don't think you can do much to the mesh without making a major modifier. If you're looking for vibration, there might be a 3D tool out there, but it's probably going to cost you some money. I just don't know of any built-in features, unfortunately.
And there you go. I'm sure Jerry's got another question here coming up. And then we're going to get to, there we go.
There we go.
Anyone have any experience with the Fetus Dragon high flow hot end? I've sent mine back, major heat creep, back with an old E3 V6. I don't know that hot end at all. I have looked at it online a little bit, but I don't know much about it other than that. Brian, I don't think you've got one either, do you?
No, I don't have a Fetus, and their website, I can't go to it because it apparently has Trojans. So let me try and find a photo of this. Oh, okay. All right. I do have this, but I don't have Fetus's version. Fetus copied Triangle Lab. As far as I know. This is the exact Triangle Lab design. I have this hot end on two of my machines, the Triangle Lab version, and I adore it. So what you got to watch for is this heat sink here. They send you with a standard E3D fan, and for those of you who don't know this design, it's a modified version of an E3D V6, where the heat coils you're seeing at the bottom there allow the hot end to effectively be longer while being the same measurable size as an E3D V6 hot end. Thanks to the adapters and thanks to the round heatsink plate there, it is a drop-in compatible replacement with an E3D V6 hot end. What you got to watch for, my biggest gripe was that the way they cut out the heatsink, if you will, is a little smaller than a standard E36. So when you put the blower duct on there, it can actually bounce around. And I had an issue the other week where it slid down and I started having a little smoke coming off my machine because it started to melt the plastic of it. I was able to reinforce it a little bit higher myself, but kind of out of the block, they don't talk about it. Flow rates wise, yeah, it flows fine. It doesn't clog at all for me. The only thing you got to watch for is the thin the thin tube, the customized heat break there. It is very thin, and as a result, it can definitely get damaged. If you are having heat creep, there's a good chance you're just not getting enough airflow through that heatsink, so I'd love to see a photo of how you had it hooked up. Unfortunately, it sounds like you sent it back already, so you're back to E3D V6. There's no problem going that route. I mean, bear in mind, these are not cheap. On Amazon, they're trying to sell them for $170 Canadian. I ordered mine direct from Triangle Lab. Over the last year, I think I paid on average about $100 Canadian for it, so it's still not a very cheap hot end, but it actually has been the most reliable hot end I've had. So, and this is the information we try to share with you guys, is that your mileage may vary.
Yes.
When it comes to buying products. We may all have the greatest experience in the world. However, there's going to be that one possible scenario where it just does not work for you. So, there's been a couple different things, like the dual gear extruders. I have stopped using those as of recently due to them damaging themselves and having a critical flaw. But when they came out, there was no feedback yet on that concept. So with time, you might find errors. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I had to send that one back. Given the price point, you're probably not going to gain that much extra flow with this over an E3D V6 unless you're really ripping it. But if you are looking for high flow, this is a good option if you're already built for E3D V6. Hopefully that kind of answers your question there.
Okay, I'm going to take another question here from our email. This is from Jomamamoto's.
BLC Halifax just upgraded to Infill? Thank you.
I did see that.
Well,
Yay! Sorry.
thank you. Welcome to the club. Yeah, sorry.
Welcome to the infill level.
I won't lie to you guys. We're a little scatterbrained this week.
We are.
I guess tomorrow is the last day of our cold snap up here. We haven't been able to do diddly squat up here. It's been like minus 30 every day. Jess, who works in a mechanic shop, has been dealing nonstop with bad batteries and all that. You can't really go do anything at this temperature.
No, you can't.
Hey, just a little special shout out here. Aman Baines. Hey guys, Steph and I are watching. Hey Aman. Hopefully,
Hey, there's Aman.
Hopefully you're surviving safe in this weather. Oh my goodness.
We're actually going to be talking with Aman tomorrow. We've got a meeting. He was supposed to be on the show today. However, they're only in town for a couple of days and didn't get in till today.
My goodness.
We're going to have him on at a later date. We've rescheduled, so it's not a big deal. Now, as far as their website goes, and that's Matter 3D, there is some stuff that they've had to kind of work out. I did put a link to what they're working on. It's not completely live yet, so please bear with them. I know some people are worried that they don't seem like they're a real company yet. They are a real company. They're just in the midst of, they're just in the midst of changing things up. They're moving to a whole new website. They've got a brand new place that they've brought all of their equipment to, and we're going to see some behind the scenes stuff coming real soon as well. So until that time, I just ask you to please be patient. You will be able to get some of their filament very, very soon. And when all of this networking and internet and website stuff is worked out, we'll be the first to let you know. Now,
so just a couple people are talking about how Triangle Lab copied Fetus. Truth be told, I did not know that. That's good to know. What I had found was when I purchased the Dragon Hot End December 2019, maybe September 2019. At the time, all that was coming out was everyone was saying Triangle Lab copied the, which one's that? The Mosquito. But it had a completely different look. Now, this is, truthfully, today is the first time I've ever heard of Fetus. So that's on them for doing the marketing, man. You know, when you go into AliExpress, everything shows up for the Dragon Hot End under Triangle Lab and has for a long time. So my mistake. That's awesome. Yes. It's just very unfortunate that they didn't market very much in the beginning, because I would have bought the authentic one instead of the knockoff. But you know what? The knockoff does work great. I can't lie to you guys about that.
All right, let's do this question quickly from Nas. He says, I noticed whenever I put clips to hold on the mirror print surface and on it, it ruins the leveling, so I always have to re-level after cleaning up and putting it back on. Any solution? You shouldn't have to re-level. I would be using clips like, do I have any here? Yes, I do. I think I do. I think I can. There we go. I would be using clips like this. These are just little bull clips that fit perfectly over a piece of mirror and the thickness of the actual bed. They don't obstruct your print very much, so you shouldn't have to re-level unless your knobs are really, really loose.
Yeah, that's the thing to look for, right? Is if you have a good bed level, then you shouldn't have to change it every print. Now, what happens generally is when people are removing clips, things micro bounce around, and just bear in mind with the clips that when you clip something down and it creates a micro vibration, the first thing to spin is going to be those wheels underneath, and that's kind of what's getting me into. I guess I could probably show you these now that they're a little drier, is the silicone risers. Now, there's a YouTube video out from December of a guy who's been using these on an Ender 3 for a year, and if I can find the link, I'll share it with you guys, because I do like to help these guys out with their work. And the problem with springs is if you just get your printer out of the box and you spring tighten it down just enough that it has some tension, any wiggle in there can help loosen that. So we always recommend to get them right tightened down and then back them off just a little bit. That way they have the highest tension against that, and that hopefully will not come unscrewed. Going the silicone route of replacing springs will be kind of covering a little bit of that and how it goes. I am a little curious about it, but I'm hoping to use these as a hybrid between springs and fixed bed mounts with ABL.
All right, so we've got 2 questions left here in our questions today. First one is Jomamamoto Spalding. I'm not sure if that's the way you say that, but his question is I perform a center of bed calibration and got my printer to print in the center now, but it cuts off the right side of the calibration print. I'm sending a picture, and here's the picture here. Of the calibration print. I'm playing with SKR 1.4 non-turbo BL Touch, Big Tree Tech 3.5-inch screen, and I'm able to send commands through the touch screen terminal, which I love, instead of downloading firmware every time. Would I be able to send a command and resolve this issue of the calibration print being cut off on the right side? Thank you for your time. So here's what I see happening. Now, this is a longer than wider bed. So I'm going to assume that this is your 200 by 300 bed, because it looks like a 200 by 300 bed, because I've had one. And I'm going to tell you right now, what's happening here is the size and the offset in your firmware is not set correctly. You see how much space you have there on that other side where it's cut off the actual circle. Yes, you're in the center of the bed, but all of that empty space is due to a misalignment or not a misalignment, but a miscalculation in the actual offset of the print head to the edge. So you're going to have to change that in firmware.
Now, Snapshot there was kind of on the right idea of what I was thinking here, that, what does it look like in your slicer? If you open up that G-code in your slicer, are you going to see that same cutoff? Because it does appear, what we would normally see on the printer is by default you have software end stops turned on in all the Marlin versions. And if you define your bed as 200 by 300 in this case, once it hits that virtual end stop, it just pegs there and holds there until its memory buffer says, okay, we're going below 200 again. The way to check is if you open up your G-code in your slicer and it looks normal, then it's a firmware issue that you didn't define your bed size correctly. But if you open it up and you're seeing that hard cutoff in the slicer, then it's actually the slicer thinks your bed is smaller than that. Though usually it errors out and says, oh, you can't print that. That's outside your bounds. But I'm thinking it's one of the two. It's either going to be the firmware or the printer. Now, one thing you can do, just to test on your printer side, and I'll quickly see if I can find this command. I think it's M220 by here. Nope, that's set feed rate percentage. There's a command for Endstop. Let me just find it for you guys. Okay. Endstop states, enable end stops, disable end stops. M121. I thought there was one for software end stops. Anyways, this is one you can try. Is the M121. You can send it to printer. Now, my understanding is that disables all end stops, so be careful about that. I thought there was one for software.
Ben's saying M211.
Yeah, that's why I'm dyslexic. There it is, M211 software end stop. So what you want to do is at the beginning of your print, you can just add an M211 space S0, which turns it off. And then if it prints normally, then you know that your printer firmware is saying, hey, that's the boundary of the printer. There are some printers that have physical max end stops, but you would generally see if something's touching that. So I think it's software here, and I think that will help open it up. Now, this is not obviously a great long-term solution to add this to your code. It's recommended to find the proper bed sizes, but this will tell you if the printer is stopping moving that direction because it thinks it's at its maximum boundary.
And there we are. Jerry, you got anything you want to push forward? She does. I can see it. There we go.
Dude. There we
This
go.
is from Accord XTC. He says, I recently found Vase Mode in Cure. I'm wondering what I can do to find a balance between time to print and thickness of vase. Is there a trick? Thanks. No, I don't think there is. If you set to Vase Mode, it's going to just spiral up.
Yeah.
It's not
you're gonna
going
save a lot
to
of time.
do a layer, stop, do a layer, stop, do a layer, stop. It's going to continually corkscrew all the way to the top. Here we go.
So it's a single wall extrusion all the way up. Now, the reason people like Vase Mode is because it doesn't print one line, move up a layer, and print one line. No, what it does is it actually continuously prints, slowly rising the Z all the way around until after one full rotation, you've raised your layer height. So if you do 0.2, after one full rotation, it will be 0.2 millimeters higher. If you do 0.12, it'll be even more fine. And the end result is usually a very clean print because there's no Z seams, there's no retraction, there's just your solid, your base print settings all the way around. Now the downside with this is it's only a single perimeter. Like this is 0.4 millimeters. And that, if you're having extrusion issues, it's going to expose it a lot more. It's also very thin. And as you can see, I can stretch and flex this. The bottom, you can define the number of layers. Usually only puts 1 or 2, though, so be aware. Biggest problem with Vase Mode is unless you've got your machine dialed in really nicely, it's generally not waterproof. Let's put it that way. Linear advance sometimes, for instance, can create little gaps that you might only notice on a single perimeter pass. So just be aware of that. Usually for that, we unless the print says explicitly use Vase Mode, we don't go that route. I was just going to see if I had any of my other little ones. Yes, like we showed Aman's Matter 3D transparent PLA. We've seen this one on here a few times before. This is also in Vase Mode. Now with this one, I think, it might be hard to see here, but I was dialing in the machine and there's actually, I'm sorry, it's too bright, but you can kind of see by my index pointer here, there's a little hole in there. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Little hole in there. If I put water in this, it would leak everywhere. You put this out in the sun, it's going to melt within a few hours, even at minus 20. Maybe I'll throw it out there today and send you guys something on the Facebook group to show you. But the Vase Mode can be very gorgeous, but it's very, very fragile. So just be aware of that. I wouldn't use it for anything structural. Decorative maybe, but not structural.
All right, so I've updated all of our members. I should have done this an hour ago.
This is the problem with us having our awesome stream things. Ethan's dad has a good point. You can increase the nozzle size and go to a larger nozzle. We don't usually recommend new people start thinking about changing nozzles because there's a lot of things you can mess up if not done properly. That being said, of course, it does pull a lot more material, so you can go through a kilo of filament in an afternoon.
All right, so really quickly, you guys can see down at the bottom, I want to talk about members and what memberships are. Memberships are a way to get something extra from us. Now, what we're trying to do is build a community in our members, and what members do is they support us monthly financially so that they help us to create new content, get in new things that we need to build boards, and this is for a buck converter for another project that we're going to be doing. That all entails 3D printing. So it helps us to create content, and if you want to become a member, there's a join button down below, and you can join these fine folks. There's three levels there, and it's entirely up to yourself. One of the things that we do with our members that are at Infill or above is we do a monthly live stream with just our members, and we do that through a private thing, but we do broadcast it to everybody, so that way you get to see, and if you've got a microphone and a camera, you'll be able to join in if you're at the Infill or above level. So I've got 2 more emojis I'm going to be adding to that for everybody this week, so that's something to keep an eye on. Other than that, I want to remind you, if you are new here today, please, hey, there's our call to action. Let's do this one first. The call to action, what this is if you have a question and you want to get us to answer it on the show, you can send it to questions@thefirstlayer.ca. We check those questions throughout the week. We put them into a document. If we have to do any research on them, it gives us time to do that. We usually have a cutoff on Friday night, so we are not taking usually questions on Saturdays or Sundays. Questions have to come into here. If they come into any other at the first layer email, they probably are going to get missed. So I just want to let you know that. Then we have this one. This is the one I wanted to do. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe. We're not quite done the show yet, so we've got a couple more questions we want to answer. And our next one today comes from Killer Penguins. Love that name.
That sounds awesome.
Love that name. So he says, so my question is regarding bed leveling. He says, I have an Ender 5 Plus and a few Ender 3 V2s about to get a Prusa Mini developed or delivered tomorrow, so I'll see if I experience this issue with it. But in the meantime, is it currently with all my Creality printers and seems to be a common thing with the glass beds. Now, he says, it is like this on both cold bed as well as heated bed up to 60. I get all four corners locked and dialed in and tested with paper testing, but the issue is I find that is that when testing the center, the paper is loose underneath. The center needs to be lowered between 0.05 millimeters and 0.1 millimeters for the center to be dialed in and the paper to have some friction. Here's what's happening. You have a cup in your bed. Okay, when you have a cup in your bed, the easiest way to fix it is take some painter's tape or some of the actual duct tape, the aluminum tape, put it underneath the center of your bed. It will force it up just enough to get your whole bed level. Now, consequently, if you have a bow in your bed, what you want to do is put tape on the outside. I use Kapton tape, the 50 millimeter wide stuff, if I have to, because it's heat resistant. So is the aluminum tape that you use for your ductwork. But I find that to be a little thick, so I'd rather put on a layer of the cellophane Kapton tape, which I find to be better.
Yeah,
and that should take care of your issues.
Is it does insulate a little bit naturally. So, I've tried tin foil and stuff like that. It's just a lot harder to control. So, just evaluate your battles, right? If the bowing is fairly minimal, one trick I shared last week, I think it was on Thursday actually I shared this, is consider modifying your first layer height to be much higher than your further layers. Because most of the time, let's be honest, our bottom layer, nobody really looks at it too closely. And so with my prints, even if I'm doing like a 0.16 layer height or a 0.12, my first layer is going to be a 0.28. And the reason for that is because it'll dump out a bunch of material and it'll help fill in the divots, and usually we'll have enough room to spread outwards when the bed has a little bit of a raise. Obviously if you have a BL Touch, it's going to compensate for that to an extent. However, increasing that first layer is akin to almost giving it a bit of a raft built in, except that it's fully filled in. So unless you're looking for very specific details on that bottom layer, that's going to help you a lot to deal with any kind of micro aberrations that pop up on your bed.
Now, Jerry, you've got another question coming up. There we go. Are any cubic chirons any good? My CR-10S has been a lemon lately, and one problem to another.
Be a live stream, someone didn't ask this question.
Yeah, the Bosk. I'll tell you, if you're having problems with your CR-10S, it could be age, and that can happen. It also could be that it's not been maintained well enough. I know for myself, every 1,500 hours, I like to do maintenance on all my machines. I'm behind on some of that. I know my CR-10 upstairs, my CR-10S, is going to get a full upgrade, which we're going to be doing in a series of videos here, where we show you exactly how to put in an SKR board and how to get everything functioning, and that as well. But if you're having problems, the Anycubic Chiron is a good printer for the most part. It depends on what you want to spend. Anycubic's been around for a while. They've got a good reputation in the marketplace, but they also have hit and miss products. So it's something I would watch for. Go ahead and look at. Go ahead.
You could theoretically buy a bad Prusa.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
absolutely.
it happen, but chances are the reason why I don't hear about that is because people contact Joseph when they have an issue,
Yeah.
and he resolves it fast enough that they don't need to go to an internet forum for that. And that's just our, push. Is at the end of the day, 3D printers. There's a lot of work that goes into design and all that. When it comes to manufacturing a printer, Richard and I could start a printer manufacturing company tomorrow because the info is available. It's just a matter of what you got to evaluate when you're buying a printer. Is not so much the cost, not so much the quality of the parts, but how receptive the company is to dealing with your problems. And that's why we've been pushing Mingda, is because, Mingda, we've had a couple hiccups here and there. It's expected. But they have been so responsive that, it's worthwhile to work with them. Creality, I love their products and all, but good luck trying to get a decent response from them. If you think the Americans have problems, wait till you see the Canadian side where they're like, we don't even know if we can ship there.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of an interesting game. What we're seeing right now is, every person and their dog is putting together 3D printer kits, and we always say go with it everybody has out there. That way you have some kind of path to success.
Okay, so Jerry's got another couple questions here.
I have lots of questions. You got to answer fast.
Yes.
Okay,
speed round. All right.
Okay, if new out of the box printer, you want to change the nozzle, do you need to heat up the nozzle still, or can it be done cold? It can be done cold, but I will tell you that it is better to heat it up, take it off, put in the new one.
Okay.
And this week's tip coming out, I'm going to be showing you the tools that you need to do that exact job.
But yes, you do need to heat it up, because when I got my first CR-10, it was tested at the factory. And how do you think they test it? They prime it with a bed of black filament. So I fed in red and it was coming out black, and I was really confused. Yeah, don't assume that the machine has never been run. In fact, QA is a good thing. If you see something coming out of the nozzle, they tested it. As long as it doesn't look really messy like it was some kind of return. Mine looked pristine. So, yeah, please heat it up. Otherwise, you're going to have a heck of a bad time.
Okay, this is a great question because I've seen this a lot. From Dewitt 3D, he says, I'm replacing a part cooling fan on an E3 V2. Existing wiring is blue and yellow. New fan is black and red. Which goes to which? Thank you. I'm going to tell you, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the blue is equivalent to the black and the yellow is equivalent to the red.
Hang on, I'm just going to look at my CR-10 over here because I'm sure it's the same thing. Give me a moment.
It might be. I've got an Ender 3 right here. I believe the blue is negative and the yellow is positive. I've changed those out enough to know. Yeah.
Okay, we're good?
Yep,
It
we're
is
good.
blue to black, yellow to red. So I'm just going to quickly elaborate on that for one moment. For those of you who are new into 3D printing, this is a must-have tool, and that is a multimeter. A multimeter you want on the market for, in this case right now, $22, because we're not too concerned about accuracy. And what this does is it measures electricity. So what you want to do is get one. It's called a multimeter because it can read multiple things. What we're technically using is the voltmeter portion of the circuit. And what this does is this allows you to press two wires against a point, and it tells you what the power difference is. So in this case with a fan, what you would want to do is with your wires, you don't even have to disconnect the wires to the fan. Set your printer to 100% fan speed. You would connect the two leads across the two wires, and it'll either tell you plus 24 volts or negative 24 volts. And what that means is that's the difference between the red lead from the multimeter and the black lead. So if you're reading minus 24 volts, that means that the wire that your black lead is connected to is the positive feed because it has more power than the other side. And this is a no-brainer. Honestly, if you're doing any work on your 3D printer, you should have this, because not only will this tell you what the power is there, it will tell you if there's power there.
Yep.
And, some of us, like me, I've been working with electrical for years, and so I can tell you the stupid things I do, which you should never do, which is playing around with the circuit while it's hot. You should always power down your printer when you're doing these things.
Yes.
But if you need to check it while running, understand what the multimeter does and where to connect it, and you'll be able to see all your power in real time. You can tell if you have a broken wire or if the signal's not being sent. It's an invaluable tool to have even around the house, because when you get the right settings, you can plug them into outlets just to check if the outlets are live, etc., etc.
All
Please
right,
let me know if you guys want a basic electronics tutorial in the future, and I will throw it out for you.
Okay, so let's move on to the boss.
Yes.
CR-10S is having adhesion problems and print curling. What most likely is the problem? I'm pretty much a noob. I use magic glue and a glass bed. I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on here. You've got too much heat going on, and it's cooling way too fast. So that's the reason why you get curling and shrinkage, is because it's cooling way too fast. So you're going to want to check the temperatures of the material that you're using. Check the temperature of your bed. If you've got a glass bed on a CR-10, 60 degrees is usually the norm. It shouldn't be any hotter than that, really, unless you've got a very high temperature material.
If you've got a glass bed liner and magic goo, it might not hurt to try bumping it up to 65 degrees on the bed. And the reason I say that is because of the radiating heat upwards. PLA, what you need to do as it cools is overcome you need the surface tension of your bed to overcome the natural incentive to curl up. And this big print that I kind of showed earlier here, you can kind of see a bit of bed curling happen on the side there. It does happen. And at the end of the day, step 1 is make sure your bed is properly level. Step 2, make sure your bed is clean. And then step 3 is make sure your temperatures are right.
Okay, it looks like we got time for one or two quick ones. First, thank you for your help. If you will paint your prints, what's the best color filament, or is it the same what you use? I'll tell you, any color of filament is good. It doesn't matter if you're going to paint them. The best paint to use, of course, is acrylic paint. It sticks really well, but you are going to need some sort of adhesion promoter, like an undercoat or a primer. That's always a good thing to use. World of Planet Gadget, I would say that normally I use gray, but gray is not always available. So if I'm going to paint it, it really doesn't matter what color I'm going to use, because my primer coat is always gray. So there you go. Next one.
Don't do bold colors, because then you have to spend a lot more primer covering it up.
What would you say, Jerry? You got another one there real quick? Oh, from Peter Reynolds. Can you guys do a tip clip about arc welding plugin for Cura? Actually, we're going to be covering that in depth, Peter, here in an upcoming episode when we start tackling Cura again. This coming week, we are taking a look at Prusa Slicer. This coming Saturday will be an episode on Prusa Slicer, introducing you to that like we did with Matter Control this yesterday. And of course, our members will get to see that early. And if I can't get them up on Thursday night, I usually get them up Friday morning, so they're there till about 8 or 9 o'clock. And then our members get to see them a little bit early. All right, so this will be the last one from Steve Guilford. Trying to create a flat 1 millimeter rectangular sheet with some rows of evenly spaced 8 millimeter holes, no thicker than the sheet, but with strength on each circumference. Can I manage that with Matter tools? You should be able to. I think you're talking about Matter Control there.
Well, I think there is a separate thing for actually designing it, because my understanding is he's trying to design that.
Matter Tools has, or Matter Control has a basic sort of modeling program built into it, very much like Tinkercad in a lot of ways. You can't do a ton of stuff with it, but
not familiar with it myself. I personally use Fusion 360, and for something like that, there are some tools built into Fusion that really make that easy. I'm going to see if I can quickly put something together here for you. Gotta love live demos. This is why we do this. 100 by 100. And a circle. Let me just place a random circle in here. Okay, let's learn together here, because it's been a while since I've done this. So we've got a circle down here on our draft. And within that, we got, outside of that, we got a bounding box. So if we take our circle here, right now we're actually stuck in circle design mode. I don't want to do that. I want to do Still trying to create a circle. There we go. So if we go to, I think it's modify here, sketch scale, sketch offset, it might be on the outside side here. So if we go back to if we exit our sketch here and go to modify, there was a pattern tool here somewhere. Pattern, rectangular pattern, here we go. So if you select usually a sketch, I think it requires objects. So let's just make this and extrude this 10 millimeters tall. We got ourselves a little dot here. If you go into create, go down to pattern and rectangular pattern. It's also available right here on the toolbar at the top. And we select our object. Let's say we're going to select, it's actually going by faces right now. Let's go by bodies and select this body. Distance type, extent, quantity 3. So let's say the distance we want to be is 10 millimeters. And then 3 in another distance of 10 millimeters.
Yeah.
So directions.
He's asked that question. And that'll be the
we
last
can,
one for
we can, let's see, we have to go based off a plane, so let's go and do it based off of this line here. So now it's giving out directions, 3 in each way, and we have a rough shadow of our objects. So let's say we actually wanted to make them 20 millimeters apart, and we wanted 5 of them, or not 50, we want, 5 of them this way. And then we want 5 in the other way that's also 20 millimeters spaced. And we can see we're still overlapping those objects. Let's just play with these numbers. Again, I'm just kind of winging it, guys, so apologies for my randomness here. So there's our 50 by 50, and that's a quick way to quickly make a bunch of these that you can then subtract and punch holes in an object below. So they've got all sorts of pattern tools in here where you can create circular patterns. If you want to make something like a rocket with fins, you can draw a path and make the pattern follow the path and clone it a bunch of times like a copy and paste. It does it so well. So that's how I would do something like that, but I'm sure there's a better way, and that's why I love to chat with you guys, is because you're going to tell me that I'm an idiot, and I appreciate that. There might be an easier way. I just want to shout out real quick, World Planet Gadget, welcome to the first layer. Thank you for joining our membership program. Really appreciate that.
So this is going to be
send this one last question out.
Okay, we're going to do this last question for John. This is the second time he's asked it in the chat I've seen. He says, hello guys, happy Valentine's. I got a motherboard Gen L version 1.0. I've been trying to fix it. The drivers are TMC 2100 or 2130s to calibrate them. I'm really confused. Any help will be appreciated. I believe the Gen L had Gen L should have.
It doesn't ship with any steppers.
It doesn't ship with any steppers, so you can put whatever steppers on there you want.
Yeah, so if you're, so generally the difference between the 2100 and the 2130 was that the 2130s are a smart driver and communicate over a serial bus back to your processor, whereas the 2100s are standalone. And in that case, the CR-10 behind me is actually running 2100s. There's almost no configuration to change apart from changing the stepper type on Marlin. Now, you have to make sure you use the proper standalone ones if it's not a smart driver. But truth be told, it's really going to be definitive based off which stepper you have. And now, if you're unsure about which stepper you have, send us an email at questions@thefirstlayer.com with a photo of both the top and the bottom of that stepper chip. And based off that, we'll be able to tell you how you're going to need to configure your board. There are jumper settings. There's Marlin configuration settings. For a lot of folks, it actually is a little challenging getting started with Trinamics, and we'll be covering that in more detail in the future. But for the time being, please send us some photos of that stepper module, and we can help you identify the settings you're going to want to turn on and off.
All right, so we've got our members all up to date on the bottom now, with everybody in the right spot. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We did run over a little bit, but that's typical of us. Everybody's got questions. We try and answer as many as we can, and we use the super chat sometimes, but this week there was none. But that's okay. We do appreciate you guys coming out and supporting the show. Hey, leave a like on this live stream if you got some value out of today. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to us. We'd really appreciate that. And after the stream is over, I'd really like you guys to go down and leave a comment down in the comment section, whether you like this or you don't like this. Tell us what's up. and we will do our best to make improvements in our show as we go forward. Coming up this week, we've got a tip of the week, and we're going to be talking about the necessary tools that you should have. A real quick tip on the tools that you should have in your toolbox to fix pretty much any situation that you have with your 3D printer. Then on Saturday, we're going to take a deeper dive into Prusa Slicer, and then on Sunday, we're back again with our live Ask for Help. So until we see you then, everybody have yourselves a fantastic Valentine's Day. Go and do something lovely for your loved one. That's special someone in your life. And have yourselves a great Sunday. Brian, thanks for joining me again today.
And everybody
always a
can
pleasure.
comment maybe in the comment section for Richard to fix my cadet, maybe?
I haven't fixed your printer.
We're sending it to space. It's a cadet.
It's a cadet. I'm going to hit it with a hammer. It'll fix it. That being said, guys, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print, and you guys have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. And for those of us that are on holidays here in Canada tomorrow, enjoy the holiday.
Family Day.
Bye for now.
Bye now.
Bye.
And we're out.